I accidentally became a love offering to an alien queen at the Orion Desire Festival. Welcome to the world of science fiction. Comment below where in the world you are watching from today. And if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. In a bustling corner of the Orion Desire Festival, Jordan Hale strolled among shimmering stalls, unaware that his life was about to change forever. Surrounded by luminous crystals, exotic alien delicacies, and the hum of foreign tongues, he felt both intrigued and overwhelmed. As a freelance courier scraping by on small shipping jobs across star systems, Jordan rarely treated himself to luxuries. This celebration, however, was too legendary to resist. Rumors spoke of its mesmerizing performances, flirtatious exchanges, and the chance to forge valuable trade connections. Jordan hoped a few deals would finance his next voyage and ease his debts. He wandered deeper into the festival, drawn by pulsing music that reverberated through neon arches. Dancers wearing bioluminescent fabrics twirled on raised platforms, their synchronized steps forming patterns mesmerizing to watch. Jordan marveled at the alien species mingling in the crowd. Slender, silver-scaled oryx with elaborate facial markings, stocky, furred cars who snorted laughter through tusks, and tall, ethereal lions rumored to communicate telepathically. Every path offered new sights. Hoping to secure a contract, Jordan eyed various booths displaying advanced gadgetry. Yet it was an unusual tent draped in shimmering, shifting colors that truly captured his restless sense of curiosity. He approached the curious tent cautiously, noting how its fabric seemed alive, rippling with every breath of the cosmic breeze. A metallic sign read, "Explore Unique Orion Customs." It seemed innocuous enough, perhaps a tourist attraction offering guided experiences. Before he could think twice, a whispery voice invited him inside. The interior was dimly lit by floating orbs that glowed in a hypnotic sequence. At the center, a graceful Orion attendant wearing intricate gold bangles beckoned him forward. Her voice carried a lilting accent as she asked if he was brave enough to partake in the festival's most sacred rite. Jordan, a fan of spontaneous adventure but no stranger to caution, hesitated. The attendant smiled, gesturing toward a small table adorned with intricate carvings of Orion deities. Upon it rested a glass bowl filled with a thick, shimmering liquid that glowed whenever the orbs pulsed. She explained that this ritual, known as the Heart's Pledge, welcomed outsiders to experience a taste of Orion devotion. Without a deeper explanation, it sounded merely ceremonial, maybe a token gesture of unity. Jordan shrugged, deciding it might be an interesting story later. He dipped his finger in the liquid, feeling a tingle race through him the moment he tasted a droplet on his tongue. An electric sensation rippled through his body, his heartbeat thundered, and for an instant, he saw vibrant flashes of colors swirling around him. He nearly laughed, suspecting the festival had its share of novelty potions designed for entertainment. The attendant's eyes widened in approval, and she clapped. Instantly, curtains parted at the rear of the tent, revealing a narrow corridor lined with softly humming crystals. Unsure whether to continue, Jordan paused, yet curiosity again won over caution, and he proceeded, thinking he might glean a fascinating cultural insight from this escapade. As he stepped down the corridor, the humming crystals brightened with each footfall. It felt surreal, like walking through a living dream. At the far end waited another Orion draped in flowing robes embroidered with celestial motifs. He introduced himself as Master Kier, the overseer of this transition phase. Jordan blinked, feeling as if he were stepping onto the set of an elaborate theatrical performance. Kier explained that Jordan's willingness to ingest the Heart's Pledge had set in motion an ancient custom. Though Jordan attempted to protest, Kier bowed, declaring him worthy to meet the most exalted figure on Orion. A swirl of excitement and confusion filled Jordan's mind. He tried explaining that he was just a curious traveler, only for Kier to softly shush him. Removing a luminous orb from a velvet pouch, Kier guided Jordan into another chamber. This space was grander. High vaulted ceilings, pillars inlaid with swirling patterns, and a faint aroma of incense. Scenes from Orion history played out in mosaic form along the walls. Kier announced they would proceed to the proving circle, where the sincerity of Jordan's pledge would be tested. Jordan's heart thumped louder. Sincerity? He didn't recall making any heartfelt declaration. A circular dais wreathed in light occupied the chamber's center. Kier positioned Jordan at its edge, instructing him to stand calmly. The dais responded to Jordan's presence, illuminating patterns beneath his feet. Suddenly, illusions flickered, fleeting images of Jordan's past, his modest childhood home, the cargo vessel he piloted. Old arguments, fleeting romances, all danced before him. Startled, he stepped back, but Kier insisted he remain still. The illusions shifted to depict Orion traditions, lavish feasts, solemn ceremonies, and culminating in the radiant figure of a queen. Jordan gulped. This culture clearly revered its monarchy, and he sensed the weight of expectation. Kier, voice filled with awe, informed Jordan that this rite was designed to test crucial compatibility of spirit. Legend said that if the heart's pledge found someone unworthy, the illusions would fade, and the individual would be dismissed. Yet Jordan's illusions intensified, indicating a rare, deep resonance. Confusion washed over him. He had done nothing but sip a strange liquid. Still, Kier interpreted these visions as proof Jordan possessed qualities that might complement Orion's sovereign. Eyes widening, Jordan insisted he was no candidate for romance or ceremonial bonding. Kier countered that the cosmos rarely erred in matters of fated connection. Before Jordan could argue further, the swirling illusions vanished, replaced by a single path illuminated in pale gold light. Kier beckoned him onward. Jordan felt a curious mix of dread and wonder, half convinced this was some elaborate hoax. Yet the festival's seductive atmosphere and Kier's unwavering seriousness hinted otherwise. Step by step, Jordan advanced until he emerged into a grand hall. A hush fell over the robed figures assembled there. At the far end, seated on an ornate throne carved from living crystal, was the alien queen. Her gaze locked onto Jordan's, and in that moment his destiny was sealed. Jordan found himself momentarily paralyzed in that grand hall, overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation he had unwittingly stepped into. The alien queen, adorned in shimmering fabrics that seemed woven from starlight itself, regarded him with intense, regal poise. Her skin, a deep violet hue mottled with faint silver patterns, accentuated the sharp angles of her face and lent her an otherworldly grace. She held his gaze in a silent assessment, and in that charged stillness, Jordan felt the shift of the entire room's attention settling firmly on him. He heard the faint shuffle of robed figures lined up along the ornate walls, all waiting to see what would happen next. His instinct was to explain everything. How this was all a misunderstanding. How he was just a curious traveler who had wanted a brief taste of Orion culture. Yet the weight of those staring eyes made his throat seize before he could muster a single word. Master Kier glided forward, performing a sweeping bow in front of the queen. He spoke in a reverent tone, addressing her as Your Radiance, and explained that Jordan had bravely embraced the heart's pledge, demonstrating a spiritual resonance few outsiders ever displayed. Jordan's mind churned. Spiritual resonance. He'd done nothing more than swirl a finger in some glowing liquid and see a series of illusions. If that counted as bravery, he hated to think what else the Orions had planned for him. A ripple of intrigue passed through the robed observers as the queen rose from her throne. Every movement she made was deliberate, as if measured for maximum elegance. When she finally approached Jordan, he realized she stood nearly a head taller than he. Her eyes glimmered with unreadable depth, as if galaxies themselves resided in her gaze. Her expression wasn't unkind, more curious, dissecting. Jordan felt the pressure to say something, anything that might clear up the confusion. But just as he opened his mouth to stammer an apology, she spoke first. Her voice held a warm resonance that belied her commanding presence. She welcomed him formally, remarking that it was a rare honor for an outsider to partake in the heart's pledge, and that Orion tradition deemed such an act a potential sign of union. Jordan's pulse hammered in his chest, each word confirming his fear that the festival's unique Orion customs were more binding than he'd ever imagined. He attempted to interrupt, stuttering that he had no idea what he'd signed up for, but as soon as he uttered the words, "no idea," a collective gasp rippled among the onlookers. Master Kier, perhaps sensing the precariousness of the moment, smoothly stepped in. He clarified that while Jordan might not have fully understood the ritual's potency, the cosmic forces guiding the heart's pledge could not be denied. Jordan felt heat flooding his cheeks. The talk of cosmic forces sounded almost mystical, leaving him wondering if Orion society always talked like this or if they truly believed in destiny's hand. He noticed the queen studying him again, her expression tinged with faint amusement. Perhaps she'd witnessed more bumbling suitors than he realized. In a gentle yet authoritative tone, she told Jordan that he had passed the initial stage of the pledge. There would be more ceremonies to come, culminating in a final choice, hers. She spoke these words so matter-of-factly that Jordan momentarily forgot to panic. It wasn't as though they were forcibly bonding him, right? He heard hushed whispers among the assembled Orions, some sounding eager, others suspicious. For the first time, Jordan considered the possibility that more than just tradition was at play. Was there a faction within Orion society that opposed such entanglements with outsiders? Before he could dwell too deeply on those misgivings, the Queen beckoned him to stand beside her. Trembling with uncertainty, Jordan stepped forward, conscious of how his simple traveling attire, worn boots, scuffed jacket, clashed with her opulent regalia. Nevertheless, she led him through a gilded doorway off the main hall, the robed onlookers parting to let them pass. This action alone heightened the sense that Jordan was being escorted into deeper layers of Orion custom, whether he wanted it or not. The next chamber was smaller, but no less grand. Fountains of phosphorescent water lined the walls, casting rippling lights across plush seating arrangements. Exquisitely carved tables offered trays of luminescent fruit, their scents sweet and exotic. Once they were alone, except for Master Kier and a few silent attendants, the Queen invited Jordan to sit. He lowered himself onto a seat that felt as soft as a cloud, trying to calm the tension coiling in his stomach. She introduced herself as Aradia, the reigning monarch responsible for maintaining balance among the various Orion provinces. Her role was not only ceremonial. She acted as the mediator for interplanetary treaties, oversaw resource distribution, and served as a unifying figure in times of crisis. Jordan observed subtle notes of fatigue in her posture, as if the weight of so many responsibilities threatened to bear down on her. Despite that, her voice remained steady as she explained how rarely an outsider had ever partaken in the Heart's Pledge. Those who attempted it typically found themselves rejected by the illusions or outright fled in terror before completing the ritual. Jordan swallowed, suddenly feeling a pang of guilt. He wondered if in the eyes of the Orions he had just unwittingly cut in line for an honor that belonged to someone else, someone who truly respected their traditions. Clearing his throat, he tried to articulate a careful response. He admitted he hadn't realized the ritual was a step toward binding himself to Orion royalty. With a self-deprecating chuckle, he confessed he had been searching for business prospects or a quick adventure. He never imagined stumbling straight into a cosmic matchmaking fiasco. Instead of taking offense, Queen Aradia allowed a small smile to grace her features. She told him that the reason she had not immediately annulled the process was because the illusions revealed something about him, although she didn't elaborate. Jordan sensed there was a deeper significance, one that he couldn't quite parse yet. Master Kier, standing at the Queen's side, nodded solemnly. He spoke of how the illusions displayed glimpses of Jordan's heart, painting him as someone with genuine empathy, hidden bravery, and a dash of chaotic luck the Orions found intriguing. As the conversation continued, Jordan's nerves slowly settled. He realized Aradia didn't seem intent on forcing him into marriage on the spot. In fact, there was a part of her that appeared as unsure as he was, albeit more composed. She explained that Orion law required further steps to confirm any union. These steps involved rituals that tested emotional compatibility, resilience under stress, and willingness to champion Orion's well-being if needed. The Queen was candid. If she or Jordan wished to step away before the final vow, they could. However, the catch was that stepping away might not be so simple. Orion tradition, once invoked, stirred the interest of many across the planet, nobles, spiritual leaders, and even the common folk. They would all watch how events unfolded, seeing in this new alliance the potential for forging or breaking interplanetary relations. Suddenly, the grandeur of the situation weighed heavily on Jordan. He wasn't just dealing with a quaint custom. He was at risk of becoming the center of an entire civilization's scrutiny. The idea left him breathless. Still, a tiny kernel of curiosity bloomed in his chest. Something about Queen Aradia, her mix of composure and private vulnerability, stirred his protective instincts. He almost wanted to see what these next steps were about, if only to ensure he didn't bleed behind a diplomatic mess. And maybe, just maybe, because there was a spark of genuine intrigue whenever he met her gaze. That was when a pair of attendants interrupted, bowing low and announcing the arrival of high-ranking advisors requesting an urgent audience. Aradia's expression turned serious. She asked Jordan to remain in the chamber while she conferred with her council. Before leaving, she placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, an unexpected gesture that sent a flicker of warmth racing through him. Then she was gone in a swirl of elegant fabrics, followed by Master Kier and the attendants. Now alone amidst glowing fountains and the hush of the private chamber, Jordan let out a shaky laugh. He glanced at the fruit on the nearby table, momentarily tempted to devour something sweet to calm his nerves. Instead, he sank back against the plush seat, exhaling. The swirl of events, from stumbling into a mysterious tent to standing beside an alien queen, felt unreal. He'd come to the Orion Desire Festival hoping for a little excitement, possibly a chance to secure new shipping contracts. Instead, he'd become a key figure in a centuries-old matrimonial rite. How could he possibly explain any of this to his friends back home? He stared at the softly glowing water in the fountains, its gentle splashing almost soothing. A part of him wanted to bolt, run straight back to his ship and never look back. But another part whispered that perhaps he owed it to himself, maybe even to Queen Aradia, to see this through. If the illusions had shown her something about him, maybe it was time he figured out what that was. And with that uncertain resolve stirring inside him, Jordan waited for her return, suspecting that his life would never be the same again. Minds to there will persevere Jordan Hale, and you may yet surprise yourself as he returned to his quarters that evening, his muscles sore and his mind racing. He couldn't help but think of Aradia. What was she doing now? Did she have faith in him, or was she merely playing the role of a diplomatic queen? He didn't know the answer, but he felt a strange pull to prove himself worthy not of the ritual but of her trust. The vows exchange loomed on the horizon, and with it the chance to alter the course of his unexpected journey. Jordan resolved to meet it head-on, no matter how impossible it seemed. Jordan awoke the next morning to the faint hum of Orion music drifting through the corridors outside his chamber. The sound had an oddly calming effect, though his nerves were already beginning to fray. Today marked the final day of preparation before the vows exchange, and while he had made progress under Kerr's tutelage, he still felt like an awkward outsider trying to navigate a culture far more intricate than he'd anticipated. He pulled himself out of bed, dressed in the flowing robes provided by the attendants, and stepped into the corridor. Kerr was waiting for him, as punctual as ever, with a sly smile that suggested he had planned an even more challenging day of training. "Good morning, Jordan," Kerr said, inclining his head. "I trust you are ready for today's lessons. We'll be refining your understanding of emotional intent and its role in Orion dialogue." Jordan groaned inwardly, but nodded. "Lead the way, Master Kerr. I'm ready to fumble my way through more of your cosmic chess game." Kerr chuckled softly as he led Jordan to an open-air courtyard. The space was alive with vibrant energy, bioluminescent plants twisted around pillars glowing softly in the sunlight, and faint streams of iridescent water trickled into crystalline basins. A small group of Orion courtiers and attendants waited there, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. This Kerr began, gesturing to the gathered group. "Will be your practice audience. They are familiar with the vows exchange process and will help simulate tomorrow's proceedings. Do your best to impress them." Jordan's heart sank. The idea of practicing in front of a live audience hadn't occurred to him, and the prospect of performing under their watchful eyes made his palms sweat. Nevertheless, he stepped forward, trying to summon some semblance of confidence. "All right," he said, clearing his throat. "Let them do this." The exercise began with Kerr presenting a hypothetical scenario. Jordan would need to deliver a formal introduction, place his intense fear in the appropriate position, and respond to challenges posed by the participants representing the opposing party. As he fumbled his way through the opening exchange, it became painfully clear how high the stakes were. One of the courtiers, a stern-looking Orion woman, interrupted him with a sharp critique. "You're projecting hesitance," she said, her voice measured but firm. "In the vows exchange, such hesitation will be interpreted as doubting her commitment to her radiance." Another courtier chimed in, softer but no less direct. "Your gestures lack precision. To the untrained eye they may seem adequate, but to our people they are muddled and ambiguous." Jordan clenched, his jaw struggling to keep his frustration in check. It wasn't just a matter of words or movements. It was a delicate dance of intention, emotion, and cultural nuance, all woven together into an intricate performance. He stole a glance at Kerr, whose calm gaze offered no sympathy, only silent encouragement. "All right," Jordan said, exhaling deeply. "Let me try again." This time he focused on slowing down, keeping his movements deliberate and controlled. He remembered Kerr's advice about emotional resonance. To project sincerity, one must not only understand their own intent, but also anticipate the emotions of their audience. He adjusted his stance, softened his tone, and delivered his lines with as much conviction as he could muster. When the exercise concluded, the courtiers exchanged murmured assessments while their expressions remained inscrutable. Kerr nodded in approval. "Better," he said, "your understanding of emotional intent is improving, But there is still much to refine. Jordan wiped sweat from his brow. Great, so I'm not a complete disaster anymore. Kirk's lips twitched in a faint smile. Not complete. But there is one more skill you must master before tomorrow. Jordan groaned. Of course there is. Hit me with it. Kier motioned for the attendants to bring forth a small glowing orb. Unlike the spheres used in Orion dialogue, this one emitted a faint hum that resonated in Jordan's chest. This is an empathic resonator, Kier explained. It amplifies emotional energy, allowing for a deeper connection between participants during the vows exchange. Your radiance will expect you to engage with it during the ceremony. To do so effectively, you must channel your emotions without letting them overwhelm you. Jordan frowned. Channel my emotions? I barely know how to control them. Precisely why we must begin now, Kier said. The training with the resonator proved to be the most challenging yet. When Jordan held the orb, it seemed to amplify every flicker of doubt, fear, or frustration in his mind. It pulsed with a rhythm that matched his own heartbeat, growing erratic whenever his thoughts spiraled. Focus, Kier instructed. Breathe. Find a single thought, a single feeling, and hold on to it. Jordan closed his eyes, trying to block out the noise in his mind. He pictured Earth's coastline, the waves crashing against the shore, the salty breeze on his face. Slowly, the resonator's erratic pulsing steadied, matching the calm rhythm of his breathing. When he opened his eyes, the courtiers were watching him with a mixture of surprise and approval. Kier nodded, a rare smile gracing his features. Well done, he said. You've taken your first step toward mastering the resonator. Jordan allowed himself a small grin, though he knew this was just the beginning. The real test awaited him tomorrow, and there would be no room for error. The rest of the day passed in a blur of practice sessions and moments of quiet reflection. By the time the sun set over the Orion Palace, Jordan felt both exhausted and strangely determined. He still didn't fully understand why fate had chosen him for this bizarre journey, but he was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, he could rise to the challenge. That evening, as he sat in his quarters, a soft knock at the door startled him. When he opened it, he found Queen Aradia standing there, her presence as commanding as ever. I wanted to see how you were faring, she said, her voice warm yet reserved. Jordan stepped aside to let her in, his heart pounding. He motioned for her to sit, but she declined, choosing instead to stand near the window overlooking the festival below. The vows exchange is not an easy task, she said, her gaze fixed on the glowing lights of the city. I know what my advisors have been saying, the doubts they voiced about your presence here, but I want you to know that I see potential in you. Jordan hailed. You may not understand our customs, but you have something they cannot teach: authenticity. Her words struck a chord in him, and for the first time he felt a glimmer of confidence. I'm not sure what tomorrow will bring, Jordan admitted, but I'll do my best not to embarrass you or myself. Aradia turned to face him, a faint smile on her lips. That is all I ask. As she left, Jordan felt a strange sense of peace settle over him. Whatever the outcome of the vows exchange, he was determined to face it head on. He wasn't just representing himself anymore, he was representing the fragile connection forming between him and the Queen. Tomorrow would decide everything. The morning of the vows exchange dawned with early, the faint light of the nebula shining through the ornate window of his chambers. He rubbed his temples, trying to calm the nerves buzzing through his body. Today, he'd step into the role of an accidental participant in one of the most sacred traditions of Orion culture. No pressure. Right when he arrived at the preparation hall, Clear was waiting with the usual serene expression, but Jordan detected a trace of tension in the advisor's movements. Attendants fluttered around the room, adjusting garments, arranging ceremonial objects, and murmuring in hushed tones. Good morning, Jordan. Seer greeted, gesturing toward a gleaming outfit laid out on a nearby table. It shimmered with hues that shifted as the light hit it, a living tapestry of color. This will be your ceremony attire. Its design reflects harmony and balance, both crucial aspects of today's proceedings. Jordan approached the outfit cautiously. Harmony and balance. Let's hope I don't trip over myself and ruin the symbolism. Seer chuckled softly. You've trained well, trust in that, and you will do fine. Jordan changed into the attire, marveling at how light and comfortable it felt despite its intricate design. The fabric seemed to ripple with his movements, a subtle reminder of how much thought the Rams poured into every detail. As an attendant adjusted the collar, Care stepped closer, holding a familiar glowing orb, the empathic resonator, in his hands. This will remain with you throughout the ceremony, Kier explained. Remember what you've learned. Channel your emotions with clarity and intent. Do not let doubt cloud your connection. Jordan nodded, gripping the orb with steady hands. It pulsed faintly, a gentle rhythm that mirrored his heartbeat. The walk to the ceremonial chamber felt surreal. The corridors buzzed with the anticipation of spectators gathering to witness the vows exchange. Guards in golden armor stood at attention, their imposing presence reminding Jordan of the significance of the day. When the ornate doors to the chamber opened, the sight took his breath away. The vast hall was a masterpiece of Orion architecture, with crystalline pillars that refracted light into rainbows dancing across the walls. Rows of dignitaries from various star systems filled the balconies, their gazes fixed on the central where the ritual would unfold. At the far end of the room stood Queen Aradia, resplendent in a gown of flowing starlight fabric. Her presence commanded attention, and for a moment Jordan forgot to breathe. She met his eyes and offered a small nod, a silent reassurance that steadied his nerves. Jordan stepped onto the dais, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon him. The murmurs of the crowd fell silent as Master Kia raised his hands to begin the ceremony. Tadekar announced, his voice echoing through the chamber, "We gather to witness the vows exchange, a sacred tradition that tests the strength of bonds and the harmony of intent. Through this ritual, two individuals will prove their compatibility not only to one another, but to the cosmos itself." As Callier spoke, attendant placed glowing spheres around the dice, each one representing a key aspect of the bond: trust, balance, commitment, and vulnerability. Ward's task would be to navigate these spheres through the empathic resonator, aligning them with Aradius to demonstrate their compatibility. Aradia stepped forward, holding her own resonator, and took her place opposite Jordan. The air between them felt charged, an unspoken connection that seemed to grow stronger with each passing second. Kier signaled for the ritual to begin, and the first sphere, trust, lit up. Jordan felt its energy pulse through his resonator, a steady beat that demanded focus. He closed his eyes, drawing on the lessons Seer had drilled into him. He pictured moments from his life when trust had been tested. The time he'd saved a crewmate stranded on a derelict ship, the vulnerability of sharing his fears with a friend. As he opened his eyes, he saw the sphere hovering near Aradia's resonator, its glow syncing with hers. The dignitaries murmured in approval. One down. The next sphere. Balance was trickier as energy wavered, requiring Jordan to find harmony between conflicting emotions. He thought of his journey so far, the chaos of being thrust into Orion culture, and the moments of calm he found in his presence. Slowly, the sphere aligned, its light stabilizing with each successful alignment. Jordan felt his confidence grow. Vulnerability, however, was the final and most challenging sphere. The energy it emitted was raw and unrelenting, forcing him to confront parts of himself he rarely acknowledged. He thought of his family, the people he distanced himself from in pursuit of a life among the stars. He thought of his insecurities, the feeling that he was never enough, always running, but never arriving. As these thoughts surfaced, he felt the resonator grow unstable in his hands. Aradius